Since Houston's equal rights ordinance failed to pass this week, there's now a petition to move the 2017 Super Bowl from the Bayou City. The petition on change.org is addressed to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. The NFL has responded, saying the Super Bowl is staying put in Houston for 2017. So will the decision to reject Hero impact Houston? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also weigh in on Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag Fox26 for life. Joining us live in the newsroom is our panel. It's led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, our news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. Good morning again, guys.
Good morning.
So what do you think the impact, if any, will be on Houston?
Well, there's going to be a lot of impact. First, let me address the NFL. Those people calling for the NFL to move the Super Bowl are too late. It takes too long to plan for a Super Bowl in any city for Roger Goodell to move it now. I don't know what Roger Goodell's personal thoughts are about the HERO Ordinance, but even if he was in favor of it, he can't move the Super Bowl now because no city could be ready in time. That was the decision the NFL made. The future of HERO is we're going to talk about it in the runoff election for mayor, and then we'll see what the new mayor does, because there is nothing preventing the new mayor from submitting a new ordinance to city council. I think that any mayor, whoever the new mayor is, would be hard-pressed to do it in their first term. The public is so coalesced against it right now that it would be a political suicide, in my view, to bring it up in their first term. Jackie Bally, but what about businesses? Are we going to see a backlash now that the city voted against this?
Of course not. I mean, that's what you heard from people who are proponents of this ordinance, and that was one of the scare tactics that they tried to use to try to get people to vote a certain way. Look, we are a thriving city, and I think this discussion is very unfortunate because Houston is very diverse. We've all worked very well together, and this was the first time in my 40 years of living here I've seen so much anger, hatred, name-calling over a policy and an ordinance that was supposed to actually bring people together. So no, businesses are not going to say, oh, Houston, we discriminate. We elected a lesbian person as mayor. She has never lost an election in Houston ever, and she's been a city council person, a controller, and now she's our mayor. And you know, in her speeches and some of her discussions, she says that she's very disappointed, we're full of bigots and liars, but these bigots and liars repeatedly vote her in. So I think that's very disappointing. But no, businesses are not going to look at this and say, oh, Houston is full of bigots and liars like some people are trying to say.
You're over 40?
I know. Can you believe that?
What about this, Mustafa? You know, is that a scare tactic? I mean, Jackie says this was a scare tactic. I think you probably have some other scare tactics you'd like to talk about, but is this going to be a problem for the city economically?
We'll see. I mean, it has been a problem for other cities, policies like this. So I know that the Super Bowl is coming, but other sports, you know, Final Four and others that were considering us didn't consider us. And so going forward, we'll see. And we hope that won't happen. But the other thing is that I think you're right in the sense that the tone that the next mayor sets in terms of trying to bring people together to pass an ordinance like this is important. We're the only large city that doesn't have an ordinance like this. So one needs to be crafted. It needs to pull people together. It needs to have the business community, it has to have the faith community, and you know, all of us to move forward. Jackie's right about the divisiveness, and I think that you know, having the ad that was just running while we were watching, you know, a little girl in a bathroom, someone coming into it, is also very divisive, and we need to get past it in order to come up with a solution. So I'm hoping that the next mayor sets the right tone.
Is there a future for HERO in Houston?
Well, we are going to have an equal rights ordinance at some point, and the question is, how do we get there, and how do we get there sooner rather than later? And the tone is going to be set by the next mayor.
Take the bathroom portion out. That would be a good start, and stop calling ministers and men of the cloth, ministers, preachers, bigots.
I never.
That would be another. Oh, that was done. He did it on the show. It was done repeatedly.
All right. Let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, on that note, let's head over to Twitter. Ben says HERO may pass eventually if the next Houston mayor doesn't subpoena pastors' sermons or use deceptive language. Houston Unites, the pro-HERO group, says, I know I stand on the right side of history. It's just going to take more time than I expected for others to catch up. Mayor Parker's been pretty silent on the issue on Twitter. This guy tweeted tweeted her how Mayor Parker was elected as an openly gay official 9 times by the same voters that voted against Hero, and she calls us homophobes. This is the one tweet back that she has responded about the ordinance failing, and she says, no, actually, I called you transphobes, but if the shoe fits.
Well, at least she clarified her views on that. You know, the first tweet was, I think, the most poignant, because I do think that the next mayor or the mayor after that is going to have to bring this back up at some point to bring the city in line with what the rest of the country is doing. The question is how do you do it effectively and how do you do it right? You said bring the bathroom portion out. There wasn't.
That's a good start.
But there wasn't any bathroom portion in.
Well, we all know what they were talking about. They were talking about facilities where everyone could go and use. If you were a man, you could go into this facility. It could be a shower. It could be various portions where you change. So it did not say bathrooms specifically, but it's places, and bathrooms were enclosed in that caption.
But you do agree that if somebody goes into the women's bathroom with the intent of doing harm, they're going to get indicted and prosecuted and have to register as a sex offender.
I don't think anyone's saying that's not correct. But you see major cities that the bathroom portion was an issue. They took that out. That was a good compromise, a good start. If we're really talking about discrimination, take that out as a compromise.
What about that? Why don't we just put in the ordinance bathrooms excluded?
Well, that excludes people out. Look, I think the challenge of our time is that there's no honesty in political discourse anymore. That people can say whatever they want and they keep saying it and pretend it's true when they know it's not. And that's just not happens at a local level. It's happening in our presidential elections. We've seen candidate after candidate say things that are completely untrue, and then when they get challenged on it, they don't just push back, they shove back, and they blame the media and they blame others.
Last week, Ben Carson said, why don't we just have a transgender bathroom?
And you've seen some cities do that. Some cities have done that.
I mean, we have to, at some point, have honesty in discourse. And until we're able to figure a way to do that, we won't be able to talk about any public policy issue with calmness and reasonableness.
Well, if the ordinance said we're going to have to, if you have a public facility, you have to have a transgender bathroom, would it pass?
Well, it wouldn't, because it would make it difficult for businesses and would make it difficult for anybody, right, to create a third bathroom in every public facility. And that's why the ordinance called for accommodations. But look, again, we have to get to a point where we can talk about things honestly, rather than any time we disagree start screaming at the other side.
And Ben Carson threw that out.
The one thing I will say about that is, yes, and that includes the name calling. I mean, when you saw the mayor in the night of the election, she then again went and said, I'm very disappointed in our city. If our ambassador is saying that, 69% of the voters said, look, we don't agree with the way this is written. And she said, she called some of the ministers and pastors liars. And I think that's a problem when the ambassador of the city is saying that, look, this did not pass because we have liars. Let's sit down and calmly talk about this. That was not a good way to start.
Wasn't she partially right that some of the rhetoric that was coming out by the opposition was not correct?
The ministers and pastors who said, this is my faith, I'm expressing my religion.
That's not what I said. Wasn't some of the rhetoric coming out? What she said was that ministers and pastors were lying. And that's not true, because they're speaking from their religious faith and their religious beliefs. That's what I just said. Was some of the rhetoric coming out not true?
Yeah, and again, rather than talking about it in honesty, you don't just get a pushback, you get a shove back, and that's really become part of our political discourse. And it's not gonna work. It's not gonna bring people together, and it's not gonna get things done.
So I want to get, we're almost out of time, but on this Ben Carson thing, his idea, I think, has a little bit of merit. But what about the cost? The city says if you're going to have public bathrooms, you got to have a transgender bathroom. Who's going to pay for that?
But there have been some cities that actually have implemented that, so we need to look at how those cities did that, look at who paid for it. You have a lot of business owners who clearly, if 69% of the voters decided not to vote for this the way it was written, you have a lot of business owners who could probably chip in and help the city do that.
I disagree with that.